Captain's log, final entry. The crew is dead. The ship is not empty. And whatever's left, it's learning how to scream in our voices. Welcome to eerie short and scary stories, where the shadows have voices, and the past never stays buried. Tonight, we haunt the derelict halls of the Boson Fleet Nova and the transmissions that should have been lost forever. Captain's log, entry 147. The voice of Captain William Brinkman crackles through the static, weary but steady. The kind of voice that's used to giving orders, to being obeyed. But now, there's something else there. A hesitation. A doubt. Tula 13 survey. Day 42. The crew's on edge. Cummings won't stop talking about the voices. Says they're coming from the vents, whispering his name when no one else is around. Scholar thinks it's isolation psychosis, just the deep space madness creeping in. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's nothing. A pause. A slow breath. But the fuel levels don't make sense. We're burning through reserves faster than we should be. The numbers don't add up. And last night, I could have sworn I heard something moving in the maintenance shafts. Something big. Something that shouldn't be there. Another pause. Longer this time. I told the crew it's just the ship settling. Metal contracting in the cold. But the look in Cummings' eyes, he doesn't believe me. And if I'm honest, I don't believe me either. A faint metallic scrape echoes in the background. Distant. Unmistakable. Maybe it's nothing. A dry chuckle. Hollow. Or maybe space is listening. The recording cuts off. But the silence that follows isn't empty. It's waiting. The first signs were easy to ignore. Food rations disappearing overnight. The ship's AI repeating phrases no one remembered saying. A coffee mug left floating in zero gravity when everyone swore they'd secured it. Small things. Silly things. The kind of nonsense you'd expect from a crew spending too long in the black. Then Cummings started seeing the shadows move. He'd be working the graveyard shift, monitoring the navigation systems, when he'd suddenly freeze. His hands would tremble. His breath would come in short, panicked gasps. "Did you see that?" he'd whisper, eyes darting to the corners of the room. "It's watching us. It's learning how we move." Dr. Scholar prescribed sedatives. Captain Brinkman ordered extra psych evaluations. But the shadows kept moving. The breaking point came during routine maintenance. Cummings was alone in the cargo bay when the screaming started. By the time the crew reached him, he was backed into a corner, his fingernails torn bloody from scratching at the walls. "It's in the walls," he shrieked, his voice raw with terror. "It's..." The gunshot echoed through the ship. Brinkman made the call. Spaced him. One quick airlock cycle, and the problem was solved. That's what they told themselves, anyway. But the next morning, the food was missing again. The AI started speaking in Cummings' voice. And the shadows? Well, the shadows kept moving. The horror wasn't in the screaming. It was in the silence that came after. The hull breach on Deck C should have been routine. Major Cole suited up without complaint. The man had patched a dozen ruptures before. This was just another day's work. His camera feed showed the usual: twisted metal, floating debris, the endless starfield beyond the wound in their ship. Then something moved in the reflection. Cole froze. His helmet cam caught it first, his own face in a jagged piece of hull plating. Only, it wasn't quite his face. The reflection smiled when Cole wasn't smiling. The lips stretched too wide. The teeth, there were too many teeth. "Command?" Cole's voice crackled over the comm. "There's something, oh God." The feed showed his gloved hand reaching toward the reflection. The reflection reached back. Then came the sound. A wet, crunching pop, like someone biting into overripe fruit. The camera spun wildly, catching glimpses of something dark and glistening moving in zero gravity. Cole screamed until the static swallowed him whole. They found Juna Sachs kneeling beside what remained of Cole 3 hours later. Her breathing was too fast, her words coming in panicked bursts. "It's not killing us," she whispered into her recorder. The audio picked up the wet sounds from Cole's, from the thing that used to be Cole. "It's not even eating us. It's..." A choked sob. "It's farming us." The recorder kept running after she stopped speaking. In the background, something that wasn't Cole anymore began to laugh. The worst part? The laughter was in perfect sync with the ship's AI. As if they'd practiced. As if they'd been waiting. The ship turned against them. It started with the vents. A rhythmic tapping at first, like someone running fingernails along the ductwork. Then came the voices. Not just Cummings anymore, now it was Scholar's calm tones murmuring medical advice from empty corridors. Cole's booming laugh echoing from sealed compartments. Brinkman watched the security feeds in horror as his dead crew walked again. Their movements were wrong. Too smooth. Too deliberate. Like puppets learning how strings worked. Juna Sax's body was the worst. Her face kept twitching, her mouth forming words her ruined vocal cords couldn't possibly produce. "Captain." The intercom crackled to life with Yin's voice. Sweet, concerned Yin who'd been spaced 3 days ago. "We're so cold out here. Let us in?" The alarms started then. Not the emergency klaxons, those still worked normally. No, these were new sounds. Something had rewired the ship's audio systems. Now the alarms screamed in human voices. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All begging. All weeping. All lying. Brinkman ran. He made it to engineering with the things close behind. He could hear them in the walls now, moving faster than any human could. Their laughter wasn't perfect anymore. It was getting better. Learning. Adapting. The self-destruct sequence took 90 seconds to arm. 90 seconds of fumbling with blood-slick controls while the ship whispered to him in his mother's voice. 90 seconds of listening to something pound against the bulkhead door with increasing strength. "Sarah," the thing cooed through the metal, using his daughter's exact lisp. "Daddy, why won't you let me in?" The countdown hit 0. The explosion should have been instantaneous. But in that last fraction of a second, Brinkman could have sworn he heard the ship laugh. Funny thing about vacuum. It's supposed to kill everything. But some things? Some things just learn how to hold their breath. The salvage team found the Boson Fleet Nova drifting in dead space. No distress signals. No life signs. Just a ghost ship floating silently in the void. When they boarded, the air was stale but breathable. The lights still worked. Coffee sat cold in the mess hall cups, like the crew had just stepped away moments before. But there were no bodies. No blood. No signs of struggle. Just emptiness. The ship's logs were wiped clean. Every camera feed, every voice recording, every data file, all gone. Except one. A single corrupted audio file buried deep in the system. The techs almost missed it. They played it in the dead quiet of the bridge. At first, just static. Then Brinkman's voice, broken and desperate. "Don't trust," a burst of interference swallowed the next words. When it cleared, his voice had changed. Slower. Thicker. Like something was learning how to use human vocal cords. It follows the signals. It remembers. It waits. The recording should have ended there. But after 10 seconds of perfect silence, when the salvage crew had already started relaxing, the static returned. And in that static, something whispered. Not words. Not quite. Just sounds that almost formed them. The way a child might mimic speech before learning language. The salvage team left in a hurry after that. They quarantined the Nova. Filed their reports. Pretended they hadn't heard what they'd heard. But here's the thing about signals. The terrible thing. They travel. Across space. Through time. Into other systems. And somewhere out there in the black, between the stars, something is still whispering. Getting better at it. Getting closer. Waiting for someone to answer. You know how sometimes your radio picks up strange interference? How sometimes, just for a second, you swear you hear a voice in the static. Next time that happens, don't answer. The official report was very clean. Very simple. Space madness, they called it. A tragic case of cosmic isolation affecting the crew's fragile human minds. The kind of explanation that makes bureaucrats nod and file paperwork away in dark cabinets. The kind that lets everyone sleep at night. But I've seen the quarantine orders. 6 months locked in medical isolation for that salvage crew. Standard procedure, they said. Except the guards reported things. Small things at first. One of them crying in the shower for hours. Another refusing to look at mirrors. Then the whispering started. They'd find them at night, standing barefoot in their rooms, facing the walls and murmuring to something no one else could see. Always the same words, over and over, "We hear you. We're coming." When doctors asked about it, they'd just smile with teeth that looked sharper than before. The photos tell the real story. Look close at the team portrait taken after their release. Look at Thompson's eyes in that picture. Proper medical scans showed his retinas were completely normal. But in every photo? Pure black. Like something forgot how eyes should look when it wore his face. And the radios. God, the radios. For months after, any unsecured channel near that crew would pick up the same transmission. Brinkman's voice, crystal clear despite decades of cosmic radiation, saying 3 words that still haunt me: it's not over. Here's what they don't tell you about space. The silence isn't empty. The darkness isn't void. There are things out there that watch, that learn, that wait for us to invite them in. The Boson Fleet Nova was just the beginning. The salvage crew were lesson 2. And somewhere out there, drifting between the stars, the signal is still broadcasting. Waiting for someone to answer. Listening for the next ship to whisper back. And so the story of the Boson Fleet Nova ends, at least for now. But space is vast, and the dark between the stars holds countless other horrors waiting to be uncovered. If you've made it this far, if you've stayed with me through every chilling transmission and every whispered warning from the void, then you're exactly the kind of brave soul we want here at Eerie Short and Scary Stories. The kind who isn't afraid to peer into the darkness, even when something peers back. Hit that like button if you felt your skin crawl when Brinkman's final transmission played. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories that will make you double-check your locks tonight. Stories that linger in your mind long after the video ends. Stories like our next tale, the patient who sculpted their own bones, which might just change how you think about hospitals forever. But before you go, one last piece of advice from someone who's heard too many of these stories. Tonight, when you're lying in bed, and you hear that strange noise outside your window, when your radio suddenly crackles with static for no reason, when your devices turn on by themselves in the dead of night, remember what happened to the Boson Fleet Nova. And whatever you do, keep your comms off. Good night. Sleep tight. And try not to listen too closely to the whispers in the dark.